Sometimes, the most important moment of your life does not arrive with noise. It arrives quietly, when no one is watching, and leaves without asking for credit. Have you ever stayed somewhere longer than you were allowed? Not because you were lost, but because leaving felt heavier than staying. Have you ever needed just a little more time, not to fix anything, but simply to breathe? This story happened late at night, in the kind of hour when the world feels tired of itself. The city had slowed down to a near standstill. Streetlights hummed softly. Shops were closed. Windows were dark. Only a few places were still awake, pretending the day had not fully ended yet. One of those places was a small restaurant on a quiet street. It was not fancy. No bright signs, no loud music. Just a warm space where people came to eat and leave parts of their day behind. Most of the tables were empty now. Chairs were already flipped upside down on several tables. The smell of cleaning spray mixed with the last traces of food. The lights were dimmed low, not romantic, just tired. Behind the counter stood a waiter finishing his long shift. His feet hurt. His shoulders were tight. His mind was already halfway home. It had been one of those days where nothing went wrong, but nothing went right either. Customers complained. Orders were rushed. Time dragged. All he wanted now was to lock the door and disappear into the quiet of his walk home. As he wiped the counter, he followed his usual habit. Before closing, he always looked around the room one last time. That was when he noticed the last table. A man was still sitting there, alone. No phone in his hands, no bag beside him, no sign of urgency. Plate of food that had clearly been untouched for a while. The steam was gone. The colors were dull. The food was cold. But hunger was not the reason he was there. The waiter could tell immediately. The man was not distracted. He was not waiting for someone. He was not lost in entertainment. He was simply sitting with himself. The kind of stillness that comes when a person has nowhere else to be, even though they desperately wish they did. The waiter watched from a distance, not staring, just noticing. There was something heavy about the man's posture. His shoulders leaned forward slightly, as if carrying invisible weight. His hands rested on the table, unmoving. This was not someone wasting time. This was someone trying to survive it. The waiter took a slow breath and walked toward the table. "Sir, we are closing soon." His voice was polite, neutral, professional. The man did not look up right away. For a moment it felt like the words had to travel a long distance to reach him. Then he nodded slightly. "I know." His voice was calm, but it carried exhaustion. Not the kind that sleep fixes, the kind that builds quietly over years. The man pushed his chair back and tried to stand. The chair scraped softly against the floor. He rose halfway, then stopped. His hands pressed lightly against the table. After a second he sat back down, not because his body failed him, but because something inside him did. The waiter saw it clearly. That moment when a person wants to leave, but does not know where to go next. When moving forward feels more frightening than staying still. The waiter hesitated. He could have repeated the rule. He could have reminded the man of closing time. He could have called the manager. Could have done what most people do when discomfort appears. Pretend not to notice. But something held him back. The waiter turned and walked back to the counter. He stood there for a moment, staring at the clock. Time was still moving. The rules were still the rules. Then he reached up and dimmed the lights just a little more. Not dark, not bright, just enough to soften the room. The restaurant felt different now. Quieter, safer. He returned to the table. "Take your time. I am here." That was all he said. No questions, no explanations, no advice, no pity, just permission. The man slowly looked up. Their eyes met for the first time. His eyes were full, but not overflowing. The kind of fullness that comes right before breaking, when a person is using every ounce of strength to stay together. Nodded once. Something loosened in his shoulders. For the first time that night, he picked up his fork. Slowly, carefully, not because the food suddenly mattered, but because someone had allowed him to stay. This was not about eating. This was about being allowed to exist for a few more minutes without being asked to explain why. The waiter stepped away. He did not watch. He did not hover. He did not rush. He respected the silence. The clock continued its steady movement. Outside, the city remained quiet. Inside the restaurant, the silence felt gentle instead of empty. Each bite the man took seemed to ground him a little more, as if returning him slowly to himself. A few minutes later, the plate was empty. The man placed his fork down and stood up. This time, his movements were steadier, still slow but certain. He walked to the counter and faced the waiter. There was no dramatic expression on his face. No tears, no speeches, just relief. "Thank you," he said quietly. The waiter nodded. Some people do not need solutions. They just need time. The man reached for his jacket, slipped it on, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he paused for a brief moment, not to look back, just to breathe. Then he stepped outside. The door closed softly behind him. The waiter locked up the restaurant, turned off the lights, stacked the last chair. As he walked home through the empty streets, he felt something settle inside him. He had not changed the world. He had not fixed a broken system. He had not saved a life in a loud, heroic way. He had simply refused to rush a broken moment. And sometimes, that is enough. Sometimes, the strongest help does not come with advice. Sometimes, it comes with silence.